Hi there, my name's Austin Blackstone, your friendly neighborhood developer evangelist, and today I'm going to be talking to you about an introduction to FFmpeg. So today we're going to cover an intro to FFmpeg, just the basics. This is going to be about a 20-minute presentation where we'll cover how to use FFmpeg to convert video, how to join video together, also how to add watermarks, and then in the end we'll even jump into some more advanced topics like how to add moving watermarks and how to reformat your videos for social media. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. So the first thing before we get started, I want to make sure that everyone has installed FFmpeg and VLC Media Player. If you haven't installed these two things, please go ahead and do so. Also, we have a GitHub repo for this workshop that is linked on screen. You can follow this link to get both the video files that we'll be using, as well as in the README copy-pastable code snippets. So I do recommend downloading that. If you haven't already installed FFmpeg, please go ahead and use brew to do so. Linux has them in all the standard package managers. Likewise, Windows has standalone installers. The instructions for all that can be found in the README and the GitHub repo. So here's what we're going to cover today. We're going to cover these topics. I already mentioned this. I'm just going to skip ahead. So this is just so first off, let's start with the FFmpeg basics. FFmpeg basics are going to cover the very basic base commands, maybe 1 or 2 lines long. In general, FFmpeg usage looks like what you can see on screen now up there. You type in FFmpeg, you give it the input files, you give it the commands for the input, you give it the output file options, and then you give it the output file. This is the same pattern we're going to follow. So let's just go ahead and get started. So the first command I want you to use is the convert command. What we're going to do is pass into FFmpeg an input file, and then we're going to tell it to convert it to a different codec and then save it as a different file format. In this instance, we're going to convert the intro.flv file from FLV to MPEG-4. Specifically, we're going to use the libx264 codec, which is very friendly for online web sharing, and it's also highly compressive. I tend to use this whenever I'm uploading something to Slack or other shared instances where memory is a concern, like running out of budget on your account or something like that. So go ahead and run this command, and if you run it on your machine, let me show you my desktop, it should look something like this. So you can see on the left-hand side here, we've got the files that we're going to use. So we have a intro.flv file here. This intro.flv file, if you open it up and play it with VLC Media Player, you'll be able to see it run. It's just me. But I want to convert that to .mp4. So I'm going to take that command and convert it. Let me go ahead and grab that command so I can copy paste it. So right here. Now you can see here that it's going to take the input file, convert it to .264, and give me the output. Hit enter. And sure enough, I now have an intro.mp4 right here, which if I open it up, will play. You'll also notice that the size has gone down from 1.4 megabytes to 318 kilobytes. This is just a simple way to run this. So let's go ahead and get back to our presentation. So that's the first command. Let's go ahead and check out the second command. So next we're going to trim this file. So unfortunately, this file is a bit long and there's some dead space at the beginning. So if you watch it, so if we watch the file, this is dead space, and then I start talking. If we go ahead and play that back, we can see that right at about 2 seconds is where I want it. So I'll want to delete the first 2 seconds of this. To do that, we're going to go back and use that command on the PowerPoint. So this is the command. It's going to be ffmpeg-i intro, we're going to use the SS submodifiers, which designates the start time, and then the 2, which designates the to time. So we'll start it at 2 seconds and end it at 4 seconds, our clipping, and then we will output it to override the intro.mp4. By doing this, we will override it and it'll just be that last 2 seconds of clippage. So let's go ahead and run that. So if I run that, it's going to look like this. Again, come down, copy paste the command. Copy paste the command. I'm going to overwrite the file. Looks like it won't let me overwrite it in place. So I'm going to write it to intro2.mp4. There we go. Now I've got intro2.mp4 here, and if we play it, yep, just 2 seconds long. And it's exactly what I want from that clip. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the old intro and replace it with this one. Looks good to me. And now I can continue. So let's go ahead and go back to our presentation. So now that we've got it trimmed up, we can join these together. If you notice now, you should have an intro, mid, and end.mp4 files. We're going to join these together using the concatenate function to create one big file. To do this, we need a videos.txt file in which we specify file intro, file mid, and file end. You can see it up there above me, what that videos.txt file would look like. By using the concat function and passing it this videos.txt file, it will then concatenate these three together and output it to output.mp4. So once again, let's go ahead and do that. If I go back over to my screen, I can grab that exact command. And again, if we look at videos.txt, you can see there that that's all that's in it. So now I'm going to take this file and run it. Looks like it ran. We now have a new file called output. Now let's check it. Hit play. Yep, looks right. Got the intro, the mid, and the end. Perfect. They've all been put together. So we can use that. So now that we have that done, let's go ahead and look at adding a watermark to these. So things are going to start getting a little bit complicated from here with watermarks. For a watermark, you need to understand how things are processed. First and foremost, with a watermark, we're going to pass it the input file, which is called output. We're going to pass it the watermark that we want to overlay onto that video file. And then we're going to create something called a complex filter. A filter complex allows you to do a whole lot of really powerful filtering. And as the name, kind of tells you, it can be very complex. What we have right here is a very simple overlay filter, which overlays the second thing on the first thing with a XY coordinate pairing of 1010. These can be very long, and this filter complex in the next sections that we get into will get longer, but for here it's just going to overlay it. Now what you need to understand is that the grid system for images isn't like the coordinate grid system that you're used to in math. Coordinate grid systems start at the bottom right, so you're in quadrant 1. The image system starts at the top left, and that has to do with historical reasons of how images are processed, but just understand that the top left corner is 0, 0, and the bottom right corner in the case of like a 1020p image would be 1920 by 1080. That would be the bottom coordinates of that. Also, it is x comma y or width comma height. Those are the pairings you're going to get here. So we're going to do 2 watermarks here. We're going to put one watermark in the top left and one watermark in the bottom right. To do that, we're going to use the first command up here, which will put it at 1010, which will just give this little 10 pixel sliver on either side and offset it on. And then what I'd like to emphasize here is with the overlay, you're able to use relative widths. For specifically an overlay, the first image is capital W, capital H, and the second one is lowercase w, lowercase h. So if I wanted to offset the images, I could use that to do a little bit of basic math to put them in place. You can see that behind my head here, right over here, that we're going to take capital W minus lowercase w, capital H minus lowercase h, and that should put it right down here in this bottom corner. So let's go ahead and run these commands and see what it outputs. So I'm going to bring back my desktop, going to scroll down, and I'm going to get my complex filter. Once again, we're going to put it into output 2. And this should give us an image in the top left. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look. Here's output 2. Sure enough, logo is in the top left, offset 10 pixels by 10 pixels. So this image, that dot right there is 1010. Now let's go ahead and run the second command and put it in the bottom right. I'm going to overwrite the file. Should be done. So let's take a look at it again. Output 2. And now it's in the bottom right. You can see that there's no 10 pixel side space because we didn't include it. If we wanted to include that and make it a little bit bigger, we would have to modify this code to be -10 and then add -10 as well. I'm going to overwrite it. Let's take a look again. And now we've got that 10 pixel border on the bottom as well. So now you understand the coordinate grid system for how overlays work. So you should be able to use this for other things as well. Let's go ahead and take a look at the next slide for the next thing we're going to do. So those are the basics of FFmpeg, and we've run through this really quick, and I understand if you don't get it, but at this point you should have enough commands to start digging into it a bit. So next up, let's take a look at some of the advanced uses of filter complex. Filter complex essentially consists of building layers and then stacking those layers and outputting them and then mapping those layers to the output file. You'll get a bit more of in a second, but essentially you just stack like layer 1, layer 2, layer 3, layer 4, and then you shove them out as like your V out layer or your video out layer. So let's go ahead and take a look at what that looks like in practice. So this is a fun one. Come on, move my face, please. There we go. So what we're going to do with this command is create a video like over here on my right, where we're going to have a scaled original video and then a blurred background of that video. And this is what we're going to use for social media. Every social media platform has a different aspect ratio that they like. For instance, Instagram likes everything from like 1:1 to 16:9. It tends to prefer, images that are tall and long because you're scrolling on your phone. Whereas YouTube videos prefer, Instagram prefers 9:16, whereas YouTube prefers 16:9, which is the widescreen format. Twitter tends to like a 1:1 or slightly off ratio. If you check out the README, I've got details on what the preferred aspect ratios are. What we're going to do here for our social media command is build up 2 layers. The first layer will be the original video scaled down to size, and the second layer is going to be the background layer. And we're just going to build that up so it's background layer, then scaled video layer, and we're going to put it out. Notice that the background video layer has been stretched out a bit, and it also has been blurred. This is just to make it look good. So let's run through this command and see what that looks like. The filter complex here, for the first layer, we get 0V. And then, yeah, for the first layer, we pull it from the video, and we're just creating the background layer. You can see that over here on the right. Then from 0V again, we create the foreground, which is FG. Then we stack background on top of background, we put foreground, and we overlay them, centering it. And then we create the output, and we map that output to video. We also map the audio from the original video to the output, and then we output them to outsocial.mp4. So let's go ahead and run this and see what this looks like. So if I come over here and I grab my command, I'm going to run it. Ah, right. This is an interesting one. So I'm using ZSH. ZSH is catching these escape characters. So I'm going to need to squash these. So I'm going to enter my bash command, and I'm going to run it from here. Now that I'm in bash, should have no issues. It's just going to run straight through it. Takes about 30 seconds on my machine, I'd say, to transcode all this. Okay, done and done. Now we have an out.social file, and if we look at that, there it is. You can see the blurred background down here. You can see the original video right here. Solid, looks great to me. If you'd like to mess with this at all, you can scale the video to be different scales. So this is the total bounding box, the background, and then this is the actual video size itself. If you look in the README, you can see suggested commands for both Instagram and Twitter, and then I've left YouTube as an exercise for you to check out yourself. So finally, let's take a look at one for moving watermark. Moving watermark is one that I'm particularly fond of, as I've had several videos of mine taken from other sources. And so to use this, we're essentially going to create a 3-layer image. The first layer is going to be the layer background, then the middle ground, which is the background with the moving logo on top of it, and then we'll create the foreground, which is the scaled down original video, just like we did in the previous example. And then we will make the V out of the middle ground plus foreground. Notice how these stack on top of each other to produce the final image that you see. If you have any questions about this, I'll be happy to answer at the end because we're just about out of time. One thing to note here is I am using the -T command to specify the time limit of 10 seconds because technically I put the background logo on a loop. So if your video is longer than that, you'll want to adjust your T. Anyways, let's go ahead and try running this. So if we run this, I should be able to grab my code from here. So I'll take my moving watermark, Control C, Control L, Control V, and run that. It's just going to take a couple seconds to build. Yep, should be good now. And now I'm going to take a look at the moving logo output. And there it is. You can see the moving logo for yourself. Clearly my logo could use some work, but it is what it is. In this way, you can create social media videos out of your otherwise high quality videos to be reused and optimally displayed on different platforms while still maintaining your trademark within them. Fun fact, a moving watermark is incredibly hard to remove. Finally, I've got some further reading links down here at the bottom. It's in the README on the page. So if you scroll all the way down to the bottom, it should give you further reading links to the FFMPEG docs. So with that said, that is all that I've got for this presentation. If you've got any questions, thoughts, or concerns, this is where I will take them in the actual live event. Otherwise, my name's been Austin Blackstone. It's been a pleasure teaching you today. This has been Intro to FFmpeg, command line video editing. I hope you found this useful and you can use it in your daily life. Have a great one and talk to you next time. Stay safe, guys. Bye.